Hello, Doug. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful.
Beautiful, and thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Doug, my man, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, my man, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, Doug, you are on this platform right now because you did invest that in yourself. And oftentimes, my man, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. They say some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, my man, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used to word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it, and I went my way. But you see, my man, dog, just recently, I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did. And it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it. Beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes now, dog. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day, and I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing dog that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, your insights, the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions, my man. These stuffs are beautiful. And just before I sent you that request, Doug, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Doug is doing. And not only me now, because I don't want to look selfish, and even with the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Doug. So thank you so very much for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
Thank you for the invite. And I love the metaphor. And I was an almost dead mango tree. So
Mm,
it's a great metaphor. Thank you.
thank you, my man. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today, Doug, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Doug, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge alone, but the application of it. And you see, my man, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Doug on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, my man, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So, for that reason, Doug, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Doug got here. Then, afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Doug, my man, over to you.
Sounds good. And I believe, right, it's not just knowledge, right? It's taking action and somewhere in there, right, is a decision. And I think a lot of people don't make that decision, right? It's that decision to move forward. So you framed it very, very nicely. So my story is that from about age probably 12 on, I lived to drink, I lived to drug, I lived to escape, and I was never really kind of comfortable in who I was. And I went to college. I dropped out of college. I mean, I always tell a story that I was drinking full time, working full time, and going to school full time. So something had to give. So of course, just drop out of college, and so I could party like I wanted to. And I eventually ended up living down in Florida with where my father was, and I was in the boat business. You know, my story is that, like a lot of people's stories, is that we hit different places in our life where we can hit some new highs, but we can hit a lot of new lows. But when you hit that low, it's what you do. I like to think of it sometimes as falling into a deep hole, and you hit a ledge and you're stopped for a moment, and you can either decide that I'm going to rise from that ledge, or I roll over and I keep going deeper into the hole. And I kept going deeper and deeper into the hole until I became a person that I didn't know, I wasn't proud of. I was a liar. I was a thief. I owned a business with my father, marine supply store, and I was embezzling money for a couple years to be able to have the lifestyle, drinking and drugging, that I wanted. And then my father wanted to meet with me right after, in January, after the Super Bowl, and I knew that he had figured out that what I had been doing. And so I had a blowout party. And what happened is I woke up the next morning. And, you know, after you've been drinking heavily and you're kind of laying there and your head hurts and you can't kind of open your eyes yet. And as I started to open my eyes, all of a sudden I heard, "We'll be landing in Houston International." I woke up in the center seat of an airplane. I had no idea how I'd gotten there. I had money in my pocket that wasn't mine. And then it all kind of came rushing back to me. And I knew that the life that I was living was no longer could be the life that I would live. Wasn't sure what I was going to do about that. But the pain that I'd created and hurt that I'd harmed others and myself. So I had to come back and face my father. And it was decided that I needed to do something about my drinking. And little did I know that that decision to do something would change the trajectory of my life and would enable me to do things that I never, ever would have guessed that would have happened to me. But it started with that moment that something had to change. And so I got into recovery, and that's where I started to learn. You know, and so you talked a lot about knowledge. I'm a college dropout, and I just never appreciated knowledge. But what I learned how to do was to live each day with kind of a simple premise of being better than I was the day before. And so many parts of my new book start with what if. That story I just told is in there because I was asked a very important question very early on. I had no idea what I was going to do. I'd stolen all this money. I'd hurt all these people. I was used to drinking on a daily basis. I was used to blacking out on a daily basis. And this guy asked me a very simple question. He says, "What if you went today without a drink and a drug?" He didn't tell me to not live drinking a drug. He just was, "What if? What if I went a day?" And so from that day forward, it's been 38 years, and I went from losing that business to going to work at a mall to becoming the head of retail at Bose Corporation, to being the CEO of a national company, and to travel the world in speaking and consulting and coaching people. And it's kind of like the first time when I worked in an office and I got my own office, I was sitting at the desk and I'm like, wow, who doesn't belong here? Right? Because I never thought of myself as that person who was capable of that. But what happened is I had a lot of good people around me. And I think the thing I really learned was that as long as I keep, gaining knowledge and keep growing and changing, right? A lot of times when people say you need to change, they see it as like that's a negative, something's wrong. No, it just means there's new levels and new levels and new levels. But I have to change my thinking. I have to change my actions. I have to change my reactions. And so that kind of brings me to the wonderful moment with you.
Amazing, my man. And I'm really, really glad and grateful that you've turned a new leaf in that question, that what if, and that's a beautiful one. And thank you for what you're doing now. You mentioned that you're coaching people and the beautiful stuff you're doing. I love that. So, you mentioned what if. So I wanted to ask, what inspired you to build a whole framework around the question, what if?
Question. So, this is my third book, and the first book was a specific kind of to retail, which was my expertise for a while. And then my second book was called "The Day Makes a Year Makes a Life," and that came out 2 years ago, and that was about really the applying the principles of recovery to the book. And then I've always been a big believer that there's brilliance in simplicity, and anybody can make something complicated, but can we really break down where are these key moments in our day and in our life that really start to change how we can be and what we do? So, and so I spent time looking back and kind of looking at all these moments in my life, and whether it was that moment where I just knew I had to quit the drink and drug, or the moment that I decided that I would start my own company so I could share messages and beliefs that I have, or the moment that I went and I was thinking that I couldn't do this anymore, that I wasn't going to be successful, and I went for a job interview, and the job interview was so bad that I realized that all I had to do was just go all in my beliefs and in myself. And so each one of those moments had what I would call an interrupter, that I had to interrupt my past thinking, my messages of my past, I'd interrupt the stories that I've told myself. And sometimes I just have to interrupt the moment. And that's where I came up with what I call the what if rule. And it's just a simple 3-step process: pause, question, and go. And so I believe the power of the pause, whether it's in our way we start our day. I'm a big believer of how I start my day is how my day will go. Or if I'm at work and someone's upsetting me, and all of a sudden my mind starts to race that they don't respect me, they don't care about me, they're trying to take my work, my take credit for my work, but and that brain just gets racing. Sometimes you just got to interrupt it and pause. And then I found that the right question is to ask, what if? And so it allows you to reframe things in a way that helps you see different perspectives and different options. We always have more options than we give ourselves credit for and we think are there.
I got that. Okay, so what about this one? What is one favorite what if questions from your book? Like one favorite one.
Boy, it's like trying to ask. I have 3 daughters, and it's asking me which is my favorite daughter. So the book has 52 weekly questions. And so the idea here is to teach this what if rule, is how to use it in any moment. And so I was going to write a book about that. But then I'm like, my gosh, if it takes you a whole book to explain a simple concept, is it really a simple concept? So I just built a concept and I wrote it around one chapter and how to use the what if rule. And then I came up with 52 different questions each week that may or may not apply to you to allow you to practice that what if rule in the week. So I'm just going to open one. I'm just going to say number 26. What if this week you let go of something that isn't yours to control? Trying to, and that's just, one question. And it could be another one, the one right before that. What if this week you made sure someone in your life felt truly seen and heard? Doesn't mean that someone in your life isn't being seen and heard, but what if you just stopped and thought about what could I do for that? And so those are just, 2 questions. But like that one with about to try to control things, whenever we try to control situations and others, it almost always leaves us frustrated. But when we focus on what if there's something I can do differently? What if I see this in a different perspective? And so that, in that particular one is just to stop and pause. And so each chapter has a kind of a story around it, gives you some information around it, and then some different ways that you may want to move forward with it.
Amazing. I feel like your book is very, very important and so powerful. Those questions are really, thoughtful ones and very, very important ones. So we have two more to go. All right. So, what daily habit helps create lasting change?
And I said it earlier, I'm a big believer of how I start my day is how my day will go. And I'm a big believer in journaling. But I do journaling a little different. Most people journal, it might, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, but they might journal how they're feeling. They might journal what happened yesterday. And I can do those things, but I do something I call future journaling. And each day I take a couple moments and I use an app called Day One. It's a journaling app. I like to type rather than write because I can't read my writing after I write it. I journal on the kind of person I want to be that day, the kind of things, who I want to be, how I want to contribute to my family, to my friends, to strangers that I meet. And by starting the day by identifying who and what I want to be, it's so much easier to achieve that. Or more important, it's easy to see it when you're starting to go in a direction that it's not congruent with that. And so by starting that day, each day, by like, what kind of person do I want to be? And yeah, a lot of times I might write the same thing over and over, but it's still a new day. It's still a new way. I like to say that my actions don't get me near as in trouble as much as my reactions. And so it's reactions that really can cause us some pain, or those around us, family, the loved ones, friends, right? So when I know that I want to contribute to the world and not take from the world on a daily basis, but I got to build in forgetters. So I need to every day plan that. And so there's a very small part of it. There's in the book, there's a way to get a free little course on future journaling. But I would say of everything I do, that to me is the most important.
The most important, I got that. And I'm going to take that as a final thought. So, Doug, for folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, make a purchase of your wonderful books, or even ask you questions, how can that be possible?
Yeah, please join me at Doug Fleener, DougFlener.com. There you can get links to the book. The book comes out January 6, 2026. I offer some both daily and weekly newsletters around the whole what if concept. And those newsletters are free, and would love to have your listeners join us on the what if journey.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.